Hello, welcome back to Out of Our Minds. What's up, guys? It's Bella here. Excited about today's episode. So, big picture. In today's episode, Nikki and I talk about my 10-day Parasite cleanse, which has totally shifted my relationship with food, and not just with food, but really with my intuition and my consumption overall. So the conversation starts with us actually chatting about human design, because human design is really just a fantastic method for self-discovery and for understanding how to align with your best self. And the reason why it connects to the conversation around food and consumption is because human design is a method that basically tells you how to make decisions to align with your best self, right? So like there's different authorities, and this is something that I go into the episode. And if you want to learn more about that, our go-to for human design is Jen and Zoe, which is myhumandesign.com, and there's an app as well. When it comes to food and diet and your relationship to what you consume, basically being able to check in and ask yourself, like, is this really what I want? Is this really what I need? That, I think, is the foundation of a healthy relationship with yourself overall. So that's kind of the connection with human design and the interesting little tidbit that I share about my experience with it and how it's helped me along this whole journey. So you're going to hear my in-depth review of how the cleanse went, why I did it, what it was like, how I felt, and then the aftermath of what I took away from it. And if you are interested in this cleanse, actually, the specific that I did, we do have a discount code and a link in our description for if you want to check it out with Food Over Drugs. It was really, really fantastic. So definitely recommend that. And then we also chat bringing awareness to those autopilot eating habits that we kind of all develop, and just, how we can go for convenience instead of actual nourishment, and how we can really all benefit from these system resets that help us connect back to our food and back to our true nature. That's really the big theme of the episode. So you'll start to see a theme that is really just about consulting yourself as the authority, meaning you get to decide what you eat, what you consume, what you do, what you think, what you believe, which is really just a huge theme of the podcast. Okay, before we dive in, please be sure to hit follow and subscribe on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. And of course, drop us a written review if you'd like as well. It would be amazing. And let's get right into it.
What's up, guys? I'm Nikki.
I'm Bella. And this is the Out of Our Minds podcast, a playground for mystics and self-explorers to journey through the vast realms of the universe, cultural landscapes, and spiritual expansion.
Join us weekly as we dive into thought-provoking discussions that unveil the mysteries of existence and nurture the growth of our consciousness.
Human design has just given so much language to experiences that I've had, and it's so clear cut a lot of the times that I just find it so much more tangible and like applicable than astrology. I mean, they're all related, but human design as like its own branch is one of those things that gives you so much clarity and affirmation on something that you've probably already experienced. And what she always says about like using your strategy and your authority, which is like your strategy, I think, is the one that basically determines how you make things happen in life. Like mine is, I think we both have responding. There's all different ones. And then your authority is like either the sacral, which is like gut intuition. I think yours is emotional. Other people there's different ones. And with those two combined is basically how you like day to day make little decisions that add up to being aligned for you. And learning just those two for myself was like, wow, this makes so much sense. And then when I put it into practice, I literally feel like my life is just, it becomes so much more enjoyable and like on purpose. And then when you go deeper, it's like I've been applying that to my relationship with food and what I want to eat. And like a lot of what she talks about is letting go of like needing to make sense to others, and that we're moving into an era where like we need to honor ourselves. Like we're moving away from the super homogenization of society and into hyper individualization, in the sense of like actually figuring out how we can figure out what works for us and what works for us. And yeah, it's like completely changed the way that I am able to make decisions and like feel good about things. Even like, and this is what the last example I'll give, and then we can move on to what we're here to talk about. But even I read a lot about Milan's chart too. And I read something the other day on the plane that completely helped me realize something about him and about me and these differences that we have. And it had to do with on like your chart, there's certain like colored in triangles and boxes. Some of them are blank and some of them are filled in. And they also have like channels that are either filled in or not. So one of them is for certain people, they're designed to be opinionated and to share those, meaning like the opinions and ideas are connected to the throat chakra. So for them, they like really care about making sure people understand them and having their opinions heard. And I learned that mine is actually not filled in, which means I don't actually like care that much about proving my point to people. And I don't actually like need to have the opinions heard. Yes, I'll use my voice plenty. But then I realized that Milan's is filled in. And just in the 2 days of me being back here, I realized I was like, oh my God, I don't need to take it personally anymore when he really wants to explain something to me and like make sure I'm understanding it. Like, that's because his ideas box is connected to his throat chakra. And so he really has that need to like fully express his opinions about things. Whereas I'm like cool as a cucumber if like he doesn't get my perspective, or if I'm at a dinner party and I'm just like talking about my interesting things and no one really gets it. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. I don't give a shit. Like, it's fine. But that's different for each person. So just another light bulb moment of how with Milan, I can be like, oh my God, when he's really trying to explain something to me and like tell me his opinion, I can ask him more questions and like listen more and like kind of like probe him to keep telling me things, because I know that that's important to him and it has nothing to do with like me and like my opinions. And I was like, that is just so helpful for day-to-day things where I would like maybe be annoyed or think that he's like trying to like always tell me something blah 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 for some weird reason. No, like it really wants to get his opinions heard. Like, that's it. That's so interesting.
I'll have to look at mine because that's really interesting.
Yeah.
It not only allows you to understand yourself, but other people.
Yes.
And I feel like that's also really cool for relationships.
It's so key.
Maybe we could do a whole episode on human design and I'll learn more about my chart.
Yes.
And we can have everyone download their charts and look at them. And maybe one day in the future, we'll have Jenna on the podcast too.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I would love that.
Should we announce that we're going to start introducing?
Yeah. We are thinking of having guests.
Yes. Well, it's feeling like we're being called in that direction. And I think something that we are both very aligned with on this podcast is that everything that we're doing is coming through us from source, spirit, consciousness, and we're creating everything we're creating as a result of tuning into that. And we both kind of came to this decision that we're feeling ready to introduce guests onto the podcast and to bring expertise and people's subject matters onto these episodes where we could dive into topics in a deeper way, which I'm pumped about.
Yeah, I'm really
I think
excited.
it's gonna add like a whole different dynamic to the podcast. But
for sure,
let's start with your Parasite cleanse, because I am dying to hear more about how this went and your realizations and what you have observed with eating habits and all the things. So start wherever it is you're being called towards.
Yeah. So, okay, basically I'll give like the 101 on this Parasite cleanse. So I heard about doing a Parasite cleanse through this woman named Sheila, who has a company called Food Over Drugs. She's actually someone that I met in person through the Health Freedom community. I think I met her in like 2021. Yeah, we toured a farm together, this regenerative farm that is such a random story, but basically I like met all these really cool like health people through this event that I went to, and then I stayed in touch with them, and then I got to go on this regenerative farm tour with my sister, and then this girl Sheila was there, and I was already following her on Instagram, and so she's just like really cool, and I like just love her work. I like kind of like trust her whole mission and whatever. So Food Over Drugs does this parasite cleanse protocol that's 10 days long, and you do it over the full moon, because during the full moon is when parasites are most active. And the whole backstory in like parasites, like why do you have one, do you have them, whatever, is that there's kind of different percentage points that people throw out there, but somewhere between like half to 70% to like 90% of people have some form of parasite. And they're honestly not something to be like super afraid of, because we also evolve with parasites, obviously by nature of it being a parasite. It like grows along with you and evolves with you, right? But there can be like good and bad ones, I think. I think they're mostly bad. I don't really know, but fairly certain that the parasites that are intended to be cleansed by this protocol are the ones that could actually be causing all sorts of symptoms that we don't really realize are connected to the parasites, right? So for me personally, I've just been on a whole health journey with trying to balance my hormones, and ever since I went off birth control like over 3 years ago, I have never had consistent periods, and my period didn't come back for like 8 months after I went off the pill. And so I just had been wanting to try all sorts of different things to see like, A, how do I just want to feel better day to day? And also maybe it will help me with my hormone situation, because another part of a symptom that could be from a parasitic infection is that if you have trouble absorbing nutrients and like your blood work is coming back kind of funky, it could be because you have parasites, and so your body is not like properly absorbing the nutrients from your food, which is something that my functional medicine doctor was telling me, like, oh, it seems like there's a nutritional thing here where it seems like you're eating well, but you're not getting all the full nutrients you need, which is also connected to like our soil is depleted, blah, blah, blah. So anyways, I could go on and on and on. Point is, I wanted to do this cleanse because I was just very curious about it. I love the idea of it being a challenge. And what you do is for 10 days, you follow a mostly raw vegan slash vegan diet. So like some of it cooked, some of it raw, meaning you don't alter the food other than like you could like blend it, etc. And then you take this capsule protocol. It's all these herbs that are like super ancient herbs that have been known for centuries to heal parasitic infections, pull them out, etc. So the whole goal is you follow this diet, you take the pills. It was like 2 capsules morning, afternoon, and night. Plus I took this colon what's it called? Colon capsule recipe thing? Supplement. That's the word I was looking for. A colon supplement at night to make sure you're having proper bowel movements every day. Because the whole idea is your body is detoxing. So going into it, I knew that it could be probably uncomfortable because my body is going to be doing what it does best, which is heal and detox. So we were saunaing every single day. I did it with my sister and my parents, which was really fun to have 4 of us together. I definitely recommend like doing it with your housemate or something if you decide to do it one day. So we saunaed every single day.
And did they all finish it?
Yeah, everyone did
like
it
everyone
in full.
followed through?
Yeah, everyone did it in full, which was really cool. And having like accountability from other people and everyone in your house too, like that was key. I also like I was really intentional about the decision to do it because I knew that I wanted to be in like the best possible environment. So for me, I was going to be at home in my parents' house. They have a sauna in the house because my dad's like obsessed with saunas. And so I knew I was going to be able to sweat every day. I was going to be like, we were all going to be on the same diet. Like we have access to things that we need, whole foods, right? It would have been a lot harder to do it, I think, for me here alone in Texas. Also, if I had to like be on this different diet from everybody else. So obviously like go for it if you don't have to wait for it to be perfect. But I really wanted to like have all the stars aligned. So anyways, yeah, so you're detoxing. So the whole point is you want to facilitate your body's detoxification process, which means you want to make sure you're having bowel movements 2 to 3 times a day. You're sweating, you're walking, right? You're resting, like sleeping well, drinking lots of water, especially mineralized water. And so it was like 10 days of just like super intentional eating and existing. And the first thing is that like, aside from it being vegan, you also can't have sugar, no grains, no beans or legumes. So it's not like just vegan. There's also like some more limitations on it because you're basically avoiding foods that can cause inflammation or are starchy. Basically all the things that parasites tend to feed on. And then like meat being the biggest one, because I guess the way it works is that parasites feed on like the dead things, like dead matter. And so if you're eating a lot of like meat and fleshy things, that they would feed on that, which I'll touch later on, like my thoughts on eating meat overall. And I know you wanted to say some stuff too. So the biggest thing I noticed was just like the immediate sugar cravings, because I also did this after a 3-week vacation in Argentina and Patagonia where I ate meat and like dessert basically every single day. To be fair, I actually felt great. Like I generally in the past have felt really good eating like an animal-based diet essentially. But like for sure, like I had been indulging, like I had been enjoying desserts, and there's these like amazing special treats from Argentina called alfajores, which I sent Nikki some. She can attest
Dude,
they're fucking delicious.
insane.
Yeah, they're like
Victoria and I were eating them in the kitchen, and we're like, what is this? I didn't know what was inside of it because the wrapper was in a different language.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, fuck it. I'm just going to eat this, like literally raw dog it. I don't know what the hell I'm putting in my mouth right now.
my God, trust,
And it
so
was
much trust.
so it was so good. It was like this square of chocolate that when you bite into it had like a wafer in it, but also like caramel. Is that what was in it?
So it's basically, it's like the center is what's called dulce de leche, which is, it's sort of like caramel, but it's a lot more like rich and like it has a different flavor, but it's like the same consistency. And then it has like a cookie wafer kind of thing sandwiched, and then it's covered in chocolate. And the ones I sent you are the 70% cacao ones, which are so fucking good. So yeah,
So good.
I literally, like, when we go to Argentina, I brought back 5 boxes with me. Like we go ham because
Oh,
if
you have more?
yeah, I have more. Maybe I'll send
Can
you
you
some
send
more.
me one?
You need your ration, yeah. But yeah, so like I had been happily indulging. Like I also had no problems about it, honestly. Like it wasn't like I was feeling bad. I just was like, yeah, I'm in Argentina, I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm with my family, we're having beautiful dinners. Like there's alfajores everywhere, I'm gonna eat these, you know. So the point is, I definitely had, been eating a lot of sugar, and I also kind of have a sweet tooth, I think, or I had a sweet tooth. So that was something I was excited about too, but knew that it was going to be hard. Is sugar, like it's a real addiction. Like when you eat sugar, or even, doesn't even have to be like cookies and ice cream. Like it can be just added into a lot of foods that we eat, especially if you like go out to restaurants or you're eating like prepackaged food. It just, a lot of it has sugar in it, and it's so freaking addictive. And it like doesn't make you realize that sometimes you're misunderstanding like having a craving for, you think that you're like hungry and need to eat more, but it's actually just like a sugar craving. So for me, I would normally, like at night we'd like sit and watch TV or something, and I'd be like, oh, like I need a snack, and I would have like a little sweet treat basically, and it was like a nightly or every other night occurrence. So the point is, it wasn't like super out of control, I don't think, but enough that days 2 and 3 of this cleanse, I was like ravenous and so irritable. Like me and my sister would go on walks and we would just be like pissed. Like we would just be like so, like, I just can't explain it other than like ravenous and irritable. And we were just apologizing to each other in the morning. We'd be like, I'm sorry for anything I'm going to say today because I'm feeling like the cravings and I'm just like, I'm pissed off right now for no reason, right? So what's interesting is the cleanse tends to actually heighten some of the symptoms in the first half of it, because obviously, like, if you are really used to eating like lots of sugar and bread and whatever it is that your body's used to, like you're going to feel kind of like a withdrawal from it. And especially the sugar one like hits really hard. So that was definitely the toughest thing, is I would just like come down to the kitchen like a freaking rabid animal and just being like, oh my God, I need to fucking eat something. But what was great is that because we're doing this challenge and we were like so committed, we're like, let's do this in full. It's going to be hard, but like, let's trust our bodies. Like that was my personal intention, was to trust my body through the process and just know that like, we're going to be fine. It's just 10 days. It's going to feel so good to do this in full. So the approach was like, yeah, we had to do a lot of cooking, a lot of meal prep, like learn new recipes. Like it felt so limiting at first because we were like, we literally can't eat anything other than vegetables and nuts. Like that was basically the entirety of the diet. So when I was ravenous, I would have to just like eat some cashews and walnuts and like macadamia nuts, which are actually so filling and healthy and satiating because you also crunch them. And, be creative with like, I learned how to make my own dressing for salads, which now I'm like so excited about doing at home because it's so much healthier. So the first realization.
Wait, what do you put in the dressing?
So, okay, this is such a good recipe. My favorite one was it was an avocado lime cilantro dressing. So it was literally just like lime juice, olive oil, cilantro, avocado, like salt, pepper. I think that's literally it. and it's so freaking yummy. And to put that on a salad also makes it like a little bit more calorically dense and filling, basically, and you get more like protein and healthy fat from the
And you
avocado.
blend it?
Yeah, I literally
Like
just
you
made it in a
blend the
blender.
avocado in?
Yeah, yeah. It was
Wow.
so easy. Like, this was like the day two when I like came downstairs and was like really ravenous. And I was like, okay, we're going to be fine. Like, let's get pumped and make some food. I put some music on, and all of a sudden, so many things clicked for me. Because I was like, number one, I had developed this very unconscious habit of just going for the quickest, easiest, most convenient snack that was focused on just like eliminating the hunger and moving on with my life, not actually nourishing myself, which I know this is something we've talked about, I think, in the last couple episodes, is just realizing how often we kind of have our motivation, our like behavior is kind of twisted into, because there's so much convenience and ease with food, that you think, oh, I just need to eat, it's fine, like this is healthy, it's marketed as healthy, so it must be okay. But then we're slowly but surely just like disconnecting from our food source, which is the biggest thing, right? I, in this cleanse, had to actually put the time and energy into making a whole food meal that like gave me enough protein, gave me enough healthy fats, calories, etc. And I had to like literally put my hands into it, right? Versus so much food at the grocery store is just already made for you. So number one, we're just so disconnected from our food. And that's like a whole nother arm of conversation that so many people talk about. And it's just like, you know, how deep of an effect that has on us as humans, and especially with connection to like our environment and our true nature, is when you aren't connected to where your food is coming from and like the act of nourishing yourself, it's a total like subconscious kind of subliminal effect that it has on you that I think contributes to just like a larger sense of like disconnection. It's just like it's away from like our true nature, which is to be connected to food and to like have a relationship with Mother Earth, because she literally gives us everything we need, right? So that was the first big
There
lesson.
has to also be some like energetic aspect of
Totally.
that.
Yeah.
Where like when you're cooking food and you're cutting the vegetables and you're making a beautiful meal, the gratitude and like your shift in energy and the way you feel
Yes.
when you go to sit down and eat that meal is so different than just being in that state of like activation and just a rush to shove something down your throat.
Yeah.
There has to be like some scientific study on this.
Yeah.
Because not only like the energy, the gratitude, but also the connection to the food, it has to change the way you digest it.
Totally.
And the way that actually impacts the way, I don't know. There just
Yes.
needs to be more to this.
There is. And I remember one time I saw this girl, Iris Daly, I think we both follow her on TikTok. She was saying how she was like really sick one week, and so she shared on her Instagram story like all the things she was doing to feel better. And she was like, call me crazy, but before I eat, I like talk to my food and say to it how grateful I am and how like nourishing it's going to be. And I don't think it's that crazy because, one, we know the consciousness of water, right? That like water reflects a lot. Like basically there's this whole scientific field that they've discovered how the crystalline structure of water reflects the environment it's in, and it like responds to different vibrations, and it also can respond to thought. And so when you like think, gratitude or loving thoughts toward water, it literally changes the crystal structure of it, and then it makes it more like hydrating. And I think it's called like structured water is what you actually want to be drinking, but so much of our water is unstructured because of all sorts of different reasons. But I honestly think the same thing applies to food, is when you're really present and sitting with the food, yeah, there's gotta be some like energetic exchange going on that makes that experience of eating so much more nourishing. And whether there's like something actually happening to the food or not, I know for a fact like that feeling of day two of actually like realizing how special it was to make that meal for myself for the purpose of nourishing myself, it just felt so much different, and it totally created an enormous epiphany for my entire relationship to food. Super quick, guys, wanted to share about a brand new freebie that Nikki and I have created called the Omi's Book List. Omi's, that's you guys, the Out of Our Minds listeners, the community, and we wanted to make something for you guys that basically pulls together 36 of our favorite essential books, the essential reads that have helped us on our own journey. And this book list is meant to align you with your highest vibration, meant to help you tap into the frequencies of some of the most powerful spiritual teachers, some of the best in their fields that teach on all these different topics of spirituality, relationships, communication, everything that you could possibly want. So make sure that you check out the list and enjoy.
Also, I'm realizing this as you're talking. Think about the state of our nervous system when we are just trying to survive and just eating the packaged food and just trying to get the nutrients in. It's a state of just like survival.
Yeah.
And that compared to the state that your nervous system would be in if you're cutting the food and making the salad and going out and gathering the food from your own garden, maybe that's like an even deeper level of that. The nervous system is going to feel this sense of peace and like, this is so beautiful. I can't wait to eat this. And the digestion differences there are probably immense as well.
For sure.
But anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So that was just huge. And that little epiphany in and of itself also spiraled out to a lot of other great things, because now, just coming back home to Texas, in town, there's like a lot of fast food stuff. There's like Popeyes and Cane's and Chick-fil-A and whatever. And we drove past them the other day and I just was like, zero interest. I was like, I have literally no interest in eating that at all. And it was like this shift, and it wasn't me being like, no, bad food, like unhealthy for me, like I can't do that. It was just like I have no pull to that food because of this experience of knowing how incredible it feels to just make my own foods and just eat whole foods. Like, it was as simple as that. And I feel the same way now about when I went to the grocery store yesterday. My whole thing was, after the cleanse ended, I was like, okay, I want to ease back in. Like, I think I want to eat meat again, but I don't know. Let's just take it slow and use like my intuition and my gut to decide on how to eat. And so when I went to the grocery store, it was really cool because I gave myself a blank slate. Like, a lot of us, I think, at the grocery store, we have like our pattern of like, okay, I know I get this, aisle 7, blah, blah, blah. Like, you just run through it and you're done. And I went in and I was like, let's just get all the foods that really call to me and just ask yourself in that split second. Because for me, back to the human design thing, my authority is sacral, which is basically gut intuition. And there's no like gray area for me. It's black and white. Like, it's yes or no. Like, if it's a maybe, then it's not it. So I just walked around the store being like, spaghetti squash? Yep, I love that. Great. I walked to the meat section, had no interest at all, which also was surprising to me. But I was just like, no, not today. Like, we're just not interested. And it was very neutral. It was very calm. It was very just like, we're just going to go with what the body wants today. And I think what's so worth it about doing this kind of like parasite cleanse thing, and you have to be careful about like your reasoning, I think, behind cleanses, because in diet culture, cleanses can kind of have a bad rap for like doing them from a very like lack mentality of like being not enough, and like we know all that stuff with diet culture. But I do think doing something that feels very like aligned, very like, experimental, sort of like just fun almost, I think is a good reason to do something. So I'm glad that it did that, because I kind of feel like I just gave myself a clean slate of, okay, we've like ejected a lot of the sugar craving stuff. We're not like super tied to meat anymore. Like, let's just start over and see what happens. And it also doesn't have to make sense to anyone. Like, I was telling Milan about it, and he like loves to eat meat. I also, for the record, love to eat meat, like I was saying, on my vacation. And I think ancestrally it's also aligned for me to consume meat at least every once in a while. But for right now, I was just like, it's just not working. Like, I don't like it. I ate a big steak the night that I got here on Tuesday night, so 2 days ago. And it was great. I mean, it was super yummy and like all the things. But then I felt like shit the next day. And I was just like, I don't know if this is the steak itself. But again, let's tune into the body and just like be very present on how we decide to eat. And that's it. So basically, just bringing that higher level of consciousness that's also tied to like being very like fun and loving and not from a place of lack, I think is the big game changer for me, because food has been stressful in the past. It has been like a hard thing for me because I have struggled with balancing my hormones and needing to eat enough, and like everybody has their own little like food struggle, and mine just was like feeling that stress of having to make sure I'm eating enough and getting the right nutrients, and it just was like this like black hole of like angst, and it totally affected, you know, how well I was able to nourish myself, and now it just feels a lot kind of like clean, more like a clean slate.
So besides like the connection to like your body, have you noticed any other effects of the Parasite cleanse? Do you feel like you actually got rid of any like negative effects that you were feeling prior to it?
Yeah, so I think it's going to take like a little more time now just to like have a comparison, but I did notice on the second half of the cleanse, I was feeling really light. Like I felt just like good energy, even though I also had days of feeling like ravenous and pissed off. I also felt light somehow at the same time. And I feel like I had a really easy time waking up in the morning. I just felt like a sense of, the other thing was mental clarity, kind of like a release of like a fog kind of that I would sometimes get. And then just noticing too that after certain meals I would have like a headache. This was before the cleanse. Like on my usual diet is I would sometimes get headaches after meals that had like bread involved or meat. Again, it's hard to know if it was that thing that caused it or if it was like something to do with me having a parasite, right? So that's where that it kind of like is the opportunity to see like, okay, I'm assuming that I got rid of some. I didn't find any in my stool because normally when people do this, I think that they literally like, guys, trigger warning for details, okay? Get over yourselves. We're adults, okay? I think normally people like
grow up.
I think normally people like look through their stool to see if anything came out. Because I don't know how else people get pictures. People like if you like look up parasite cleanses and look up like examples of like
Wait, people like sift through their own stool to find parasites just to have like
yeah, because like that's how you would confirm that they like got pulled out and got released from the body, because they would be like,
did like anyone in your family do this?
No one did it. And I think we were like okay, we did like look in the toilet every time after just to like see if there was something floating there. So graphic. But I don't know. I honestly think probably something did come out and I didn't see it and whatever. And they could be all different sizes. Like I'll spare you guys the details, but if you are interested, like you should look up the different parasites that people have like found in their stool, because it's fucking crazy like how big they can be. It's really gross, but yeah.
You know what I'm imagining? You know the Mucinex commercial where it's that green booger and he's like, "Hey guys." I'm literally like imagining that.
Oh my god. Yeah. But yeah, so I don't technically have like physical proof that something came out, but I just know that I felt amazing at the end, and like I think for sure I gained like the lightness, the better energy, better mental clarity, just like less irritability. So just like the general feeling of like better well-being overall. And this is why I want to continue a little bit of the like quote unquote diet that I was on, of just eating a lot of plants, because it just felt really good. And yeah, it's just good to experiment and like eat the rainbow and see how everything makes you feel. So that's kind of my plan, is to just like keep going with a lot of the recipes and stuff that I liked, and just slowly integrate things back in, like have bread, see how it feels. If it doesn't feel good, okay, great to know. We're just gonna have that like when I want to, you know, indulge or whatever it is, right?
It's literally just adding another layer of awareness and consciousness to eating.
Yeah.
Like everything we talk about is always adding deeper levels of consciousness and more awareness. And when you start to do that with your food, it is crazy how much better you feel just listening to your intuition Like, I know we spoke about this on that other episode with the body checking of like putting a piece of food up to your chest. And like, if you lean forward, it's a yes. If you lean back, it's a no, like using your body as a pendulum, what Victoria taught me. But it's crazy, like when you just take a second to think before you're eating instead of unconsciously just consuming things on autopilot.
Yeah.
Whether it be the food or the content that you're consuming, like it doesn't matter what it is, it will change your life. And that is literally you connecting deeper to your intuition and what works for you. I feel like when we are consuming all this content, and even like someone listening to this podcast right now, it's not to say like, oh, cut out meat because Bella is feeling good because she's not eating meat right now.
Right.
The deeper message here is to really tune into your own body and do what works for you. It's so easy to consume all this content and keep hopping on these fads and these trends of the vegan diet, the plant-based diet,
because
the
someone
carnivore
else,
diet.
Right. Yeah, because someone else is telling you to do it. Yeah. Yeah,
but
like
we're
that's
all freaking different.
Yes, exactly. Like that's really important. And I'm definitely someone who historically has like fallen prey to the dogmatic approach to certain like food lifestyles, right? Like I had the phase of I watched like the vegan documentaries or like the climate change documentaries that like hammered home that like you have to be vegan, and if not, like you will die and get cancer and you're destroying the earth. Like, whoa,
and you're
right?
going to hell.
Yeah, but like I tried it and I did it, like whatever, right? And then I also went to the complete other side of the spectrum, also mainly because I tried the whole vegan vegetarian thing. It just wasn't really working for me health-wise. So then I tried to eat meat again and I started to feel better. I gained weight. My period was coming back a little bit more. So again, it was like a personal experience of that working. But then you have people on the way opposite end of vegan who are like all meat everything. And again, it just turns into like a dogmatic approach to what is right. And yeah, you can have like research and science on studies of how meat affects versus how spinach does for people. Like those things are good, but I really believe that ultimately, like if you are able to bring that level of consciousness and awareness to your food, like you will arrive at a personal food lifestyle and diet, if you will, that actually fits your needs. And what's actually interesting, but the other thing I thought of with this is, I don't know if you follow this woman, her Instagram thing is Healthily. Her name's Illy, but she has like a whole brand called Healthily. She's really cool. She basically like, she like debunks all these like faux healthy like fitness products that are actually shit, right? Like I don't know what's like a
Bloom.
like stuff. I don't know Bloom, but basically ones that are like the classic like protein powders or all these like
greens, athletic greens.
Yeah, I think those seem to be good. But yeah, the point is there's a lot of those that are actually like bullshit and have like all this crap in them, and all these like fitness influencers promote them because for whatever reason, like money, or they think it's healthy or whatever. And the ingredients are actually total shit. And she, in one part, like for one part of her thing is that she like debunks and calls out a lot of those brands. And then she also just talks a lot about like food and healthy products. She has a whole online storefront called Live Healthily. That's amazing. It's great because she's one of those people who like has a super high standard. So if you want to find like a good face wash, you can go on there because she like does all the, requirements and testing. So what I thought of was like something that she fights against is there's this trend in like nutrition and like diet, I guess, industry, where people don't want to call foods good or bad, which I can understand because from the mental health perspective, you want to be like careful about how you relate to the food. But she says how like, I get that, but the problem is there are things that we eat that are just outwardly not like aligned and healthy for us. Like they're not going to support your body and your mind's highest being. And so she talks a lot about this aspect of like, when we say like, oh, no food is good or bad, it's like, okay, but seed oils are like incredibly freaking inflammatory and are linked to like all these different cancers, or XYZ food is like known to contribute to like ADHD in kids, like all these things that because people don't want to like label the food shows that on a deeper level, like we don't have that ability to bring consciousness and awareness without then becoming anxious about it. And that's the interesting difference is like, I think what I'm glad that I was able to achieve through this experience is seeing the nuance between, you know, like falling into labeling things as good or bad because I think that like I'll be bad if I eat it or something, versus understanding objectively like this food or this like processed thing that everybody thinks is normal is actually not serving our highest good, and how just like dangerous it can be to go down that route of like, oh no, don't label this good or bad, because then it's like, okay, but we need to also teach people about the truth about the food and the things that they eat every day.
I feel like it's also the energy at which you're making the choices from. It's all about feeling empowered. So it's obviously good to be aware that a seed oil is super inflammatory. But let's say you're going to eat something that has a bunch of seed oils in it. It's not the energy of, oh, I can't eat that. Like I'm a victim to this seed oil product. No, I am making the empowered decision to not consume that right now. And then there are maybe some days where I'm going to make the empowered decision to enjoy ice cream or French fries,
chicken
right?
sandwich.
Like after the fried chicken fucking sandwich.
Yeah.
Like it's all about taking the choices from this angle of empowerment instead of like thinking that we're victims to anything and that we are like, I don't know, falling victim to these bad foods, when in reality there's duality in everything, and it's okay if some things are inherently not the best for the system that we are functioning. And I think it's all about just making the choices from that empowered place.
Yeah, for sure. It's very subtle, but I think that's what makes the world of difference, is just recognizing like, yeah, just asking questions of like, am I not eating this because someone told me not to, or am I not eating this because I genuinely don't like it, or do I want to just give myself a clean slate and try everything and see how it makes me feel? Like, it's just applying that practice of, you know, skepticism and critical thinking to what you consume in all the different ways. And it's just really interesting because, yeah, it just has become like so easy and normalized to just eat. I don't know. It's like, yeah, there's a reason why like in the US we have like an obesity problem and we have so much chronic illness, and it's like, hello, like we are not the beacon of optimal health and healing and nourishment. Like we have a massive problem, and like we have to be honest about it. We have to be able to say, you know, what is the truth behind this ingredient or this food or this like brand and what they make and how it affects you. Like we have to be able to say those things, and it's on us on how we interpret that information.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny that you're talking about the meat too, because I almost did this little experiment with myself. So Peter was going to Europe for 2 weeks, and I decided that, I don't know, when you're living with a partner, it's kind of interesting to see how your eating habits, especially when you're cooking together, kind of just morph into one, and you start to forget like, wait, what do I actually want to be eating versus like what has become a convenience to us as a partnership, cooking and eating each day. And when Peter went to Europe for 2 weeks, I was like, you know what? I'm going to use this as a little experiment for me to just play around with using more of my intuition of what I want to be eating versus like what we just have been eating over the past, like however many years we've been together. So I was in Arizona by myself, and I went to Whole Foods and I just bought all Whole Foods. Like I didn't buy any meat. I didn't buy any eggs. I didn't buy any freaking oat milk. I just bought Whole Foods. I bought spinach, tomatoes, avocados, chickpeas, like a bunch of just like different, like broccoli, like all different things that I can make for dinner, peppers, onions. And while I was in Arizona, I just ate Whole Foods, and I was focusing on, like in my mind, I was like, I just want to stay away from inflammatory foods, because this was at the point of just like I was feeling super inflamed in like my face. And I remember I was sharing with you, I like went and bought a gua sha too, and like I have noticed such a difference like in the levels of inflammation that I was experiencing with my face and my body. And I started to just use that week as an experiment of like, okay, what happens if I just really start listening to my intuition and eating the things that just make me feel fucking amazing?
Yeah.
And I wasn't eating meat, and I was feeling really good. And I feel like this could just be a result of me eating less processed foods as a whole, as opposed to like removing meat from my diet. So I'm a little like confused as to what was making me feel so good. I feel like it could just be the lack of like sugar. I wasn't eating
Yeah.
gluten, and I wasn't eating dairy at that time. So after that week, I kind of had the exact same realizations as you of just like, okay, I want to like be more in tune with what feels good to me. And I've been eating a lot less meat. I haven't cut it out completely at all. Like we even went to that chili festival the other day and we had like burgers and like pepperoni pizza. And it's not that I'm cutting it out, but I'm just getting more in tune with what feels good to me. Like Peter made me eggs and bacon the other day for breakfast, and I like sat just for a second before eating the bacon and I'm like, do I really want this, or is it just because it's on my plate right in front of me that I'm gonna eat it? And I was like, I don't really want this right now. It's not like feeling good for me.
Yeah.
And I just put the bacon to the side. I actually gave it to Nala, and then I ate the eggs, and then I like got some fruit out of the fridge.
Yeah.
But this way of eating has been very empowering, very like eye-opening to just see like what we will unconsciously do with our eating habits, especially when, even if you're living with roommates or you're living with a partner, you kind of lose like your sense of intuitivenous with the decisions you're making, because it just becomes like one, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it just becomes like default, like a autopilot behavior. You just don't think about it.
Right. And I actually started eating meat again in my diet because Peter and I were both pescatarian for a very long time, and one day he woke up and was like, I'm gonna start like lifting weights more. I really want to start eating more protein, so I'm gonna start eating meat again. And I was like, well, fuck, like I'm kind of like feeling like I'm ready to eat meat, and I'm not gonna be making 2 dinners a night. Like if I'm cooking or he's cooking, like I don't want us to be making 2 separate dinners.
Right.
And I was like, fuck it, I'll just eat meat. So I started eating meat again about like a year and like probably a half ago. And it definitely was like a shock to my system, because I was eating a lot of processed meat at first, because I was like, oh my God, I can eat burgers and bacon and pepperoni and all the things. So I don't know, like I'm just practicing the art of not putting myself in any boxes and listening to what intuitively feels right for me. And it's interesting we're talking about this now in the aspect of food, because we spoke about this more in the aspect of like ideologies and like political opinions in that other episode. And I'm imagining the visual of like the reel that we made of like things being put in boxes, and to just tune more into what you truly value and what feels good to you, as opposed to like thinking you need to eat a certain way. So yeah, that's like the journey I'm on now. Like no more boxes, what feels good for me, and like really tuning into what feels good. And I feel like that is how we truly thrive in this world.
Yeah, that's it. It's just like progressively disentangling from all the weird identities and things that we do because we think that we're supposed to do it, or like, oh, a yoga teacher does this and whatever. And it's just like, yeah, it just pulls us away from what we actually need. And I was just looking up because I was curious, because I've heard about, I'm sure you've heard like about the Whole30 diet, right?
Yes.
So Whole Foods actually includes, Whole Foods includes fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, seeds, whole grains, meat, fish, and eggs. So actually this is what's really cool, is a whole food diet is basically just, you can think about it like if it kind of like didn't exist, like, I don't know, 500 years ago, like you don't eat it, meaning all these like very like processed, like prepackaged, pre-made processed meats, like those are not whole. The idea is that you want to eat the food in as pure a form as possible. So like if you're eating really great quality, like grass-fed beef, like that's fantastic, right? That's probably what I'm thinking of doing, is I want to make better purchasing choices with meat, because that's the other problem is I think like the meat here in the grocery store, they don't have like the best selection. So maybe I'll start to do like Butcher Box or one of those like things where you can order really good meat from like Montana or whatever the fuck it is, so that the quality is just higher. And like I think that's the key, is just like bringing yourself back to how the OG humans did it. And the biggest obvious ones are like the sugar, the processed stuff, like the things that just didn't really grow like out of the ground or come like directly from an animal. It's like the kind of general approach that people do with Whole30.
Right. I feel like that's the approach I want to lean into more of, which I have been, with like an 80-20 approach. Like I don't want to go to let's say a chili festival and be like, I can't eat the burger or like the pepperoni pizza. There's this approach to intuitive eating that allows you to actually tune into, am I wanting to enjoy this piece of pizza right now with no guilt or shame? And if it's a fuck yes, then let it be a fuck yes, and eat that thing with so much love and gratitude and appreciation, which I feel like you do really well. Like we've obviously ate a bunch together, and I feel like you always tune into just like a very like guiltless way of like enjoying things, which I appreciate.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like the 80-20 is just like a good rule for just, because I've heard people say this before, like the anxiety that you feel around food is probably worse than the food itself. I think there's some exceptions to that. But yeah, generally like just giving yourself that reset. And what's really cool is the human body is so incredible at healing that it really doesn't take that long to reset. Like literally just think 10 days, and I just said 10 days is nothing. Like that is such a short time span. And the fact that I feel this whole like reset and really like got rid of a lot of the like sugar intense cravings and stuff, like that's incredible. So the body bounces back, and it's like, it's not to say that to be like, oh, just treat yourself like shit, you'll be fine. It's like, know that the power is always in your hands. Like the body is so intelligent, and when you give it what it needs, when you give it what it wants, like it will thrive, and it will help you thrive and achieve the things that you want to achieve. But like it's really important to bring in that intentionality and awareness, and like even give yourself the opportunity to like hit reset, whether it's like through doing some type of Parasite cleanse or Whole30 or whatever, or just like mentally reset and like assess all of the food stories that you have.
Yeah. The mental aspects of the resets and the cleanses are like so fucking powerful. Apparently doing a fast, like I've seen a bunch of posts, and I'm not gonna just like be like, this is wholeheartedly true. I would have to do some more research, but I've seen that to heal some really deep illnesses, and there are people that have healed cancer from fasting. Because they're not feeding obviously the cells that are thriving off of the shitty food or food in general. You can like starve those cells to death. Isn't that fucking crazy?
Fasting is really interesting, and it's again one of those things that you also have to like know your specific case. Like if you're healing a hormone imbalance, generally people say maybe don't fast because you don't want to put your body into stress. But then people also say like the fast can like give yourself the reset. Like actually, because on Tuesday night I had that steak and I wasn't feeling well the next day, I effectively fasted until the afternoon because I was just tuning in. I was like, I don't actually want to eat anything right now. Like my stomach is hurting, and I think I just want to like reset a bit. And I felt really good because I fasted a little bit. Which I don't normally do, but yeah, like that's another huge thing that apparently is really, really powerful. And I know people, Dr. or Peter Attia, Peter Attia talks a lot about Peter from fucking Hunger Games. Yeah, it turns out that guy Peter from Hunger Games, he fasted the entire time. That's why he won. No, Peter Attia does a lot of research on fasting. So if you guys want to like know more about that, because I honestly don't know much at all, that's like someone that you could look up.
Cool.
Should we?
Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued by it.
Yeah. Sorry, I was gonna say.
I feel like we.
No, go ahead.
I feel it. I don't know. Do we have enough time to pivot? We could. This was like a lengthy conversation.
There was one thing that I could share that I learned about plant consciousness that I think I shared with you.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
Okay. So this is... Hold on. I need to like pull up our Notion.
So plants have emotions.
Yes. So basically when I was... Actually, this was when I was in Argentina. And my aunt's dad, who's like the sweetest man alive. He's always like so interested in like what like what I'm doing, what's happening in my life, and he's always like asking me about Milan and like SpaceX. He's like the most like genuine man ever. And he's like really well read and like super into wellness. And he told me this, he must be like 80, but he's like in incredible shape. So he told me about this man named Stefano Mancuso who has all these TED Talks and research and a book about plant consciousness. And so I watched one of the TED Talks and I was like mind blown, because the thing is, like, we know this kind of generally, and especially, you know, people who've done like plant medicine or whatever, like we're aware that plants kind of have this like mystical aspect to them where they seem to like really unlock some pretty profound experiences or transformations for people. So basically I watched this video on consciousness of plants, and it just gave me like a lot of inspiration around kind of like curiosity of like, why are plants so interesting? Like, what makes them so advanced? And one of the things he talks about is like, I think one of the things he says is, so like, for example, trees, right? They've been around for so long and they're so evolved, and that we have basically, as humans, we have a lot to learn from plants because they are able to perceive their reality, but they don't have the same senses that we do. So the first huge click I had was kind of like this idea that a lot of the times in the material 3D world, we're like, oh, it's not real unless you can like, you know, feel it or touch it or see it, or we can quantify it. And with plants, they don't have like sight in the way that we do, right? They don't have ears the way that we do, but they're fully connected to their environment, and they're so intelligent that they communicate with each other, right? Like trees have a certain way of communicating. There's obviously like the mycelium, like mushroom network thing that's like a whole fascinating aspect of how technically mushrooms aren't plants. Are they?
No.
No? Okay, right.
They're their own like
they're mycelium? Fungi.
Let's see. Fungi, yeah. Obviously.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah, I'm like, what's a fucking mushroom?
I'm like, are mushrooms plant?
Anyway, my point is, like, there are other beings on this planet that clearly are in communication with their environment, but they don't have the same senses that we do. So number one, I was just like, that is like such fantastic proof almost of not limiting ourselves to what our five senses can tell us about the world, and to understand that like there is just a profound expansion that happens when you let go of only seeing truth as what you can sense with your five senses. And this idea of learning about plants was to say that, holy shit, plants are interacting with each other, they're communicating, they like, this guy has all these videos of these like studies, I guess, that he does where he'll put like a beanstalk plant, put like two of them on either side of like a pole, and the bean like vine has to like find the pole by itself, or I don't know, it like basically starts to grow towards the pole to then wrap itself around it. And if there's another one, they're like aware that the plants are aware of each other, and they're like in competition to spiral themselves around the pole. And I was just watching these videos, so mind blown, because I was like, okay, I know this is a thing. I've seen, you know, like time lapses of plants growing and that they go so fast, but he was just explaining all of these like almost like what you would equate to like a psychological behavior happening within the plant that just blew my mind. And so I just like took these little notes that I wanted to read here because it was just really interesting. So this is about plant consciousness. This is what I wrote. We have so much to learn from plants. They perceive their surroundings without eyes and ears, yet are effortlessly in harmony with their environment. Maybe plants are our first clue toward understanding that our sense organs limit the way that we see the world around us. I wonder if plant consumption allows us to access higher states of consciousness because of their different sense abilities. Do they get passed on to us temporarily? So this was just like a question and thought experiment that I was having was, I mean, we know with certain plant medicines that people literally access higher states of consciousness. But then I thought to myself, I wonder if when you eat, raw plants and like have a lot of, whole foods in the form of plants, diets, vegetables, fruits, that, I don't know, maybe I sound really dumb asking this, but I'm just like curious about if plants have all these magical capabilities. They're not necessarily magical, they're biological, but they seem pretty magical compared to like the way that we experience the world. That I just thought, maybe there's a lot of merit to the idea of consuming plants and like really getting something from the plant that could be really good for our consciousness. And I don't know anything other than that question, but it just really got me thinking.
I mean, it makes sense when you really think about it. It's like consuming the living things that have their own consciousness as opposed to the dead things.
Yeah.
But then would you consider meat being like the same type of deal where you're consuming something that has consciousness, or because it's dead, it doesn't actually have consciousness anymore?
I don't know. I really don't know. I suppose it's different because it's literally not living, right? But I don't know, because when you pull like arugula, I guess it's still alive even though it's not connected to like its root, but because you haven't like cooked it yet. And that's why people argue for like raw veganism, and a lot of the diet I did was like living food, so it was all raw. So I really don't know, and I'm like very curious about it. But well, the other thing is like a lot of like Native American cultures, they eat meat and they eat like the whole cow or whatever it is because they honor like the entire being, and so they're very connected also to like the soul of the animal, and they express like gratitude and like say thank you to that being and acknowledge that it had to die to give them sustenance. And so there's kind of that aspect too where you can still be like intentional and honoring of the living being, and that it is now it's like part of the circle of life that had to die in order for you to get sustenance. I mean, we still have to effectively kill the plant to eat it.
Yeah, but it's not dead until it's like rotten. Like it's still alive as you're eating. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and even then like the fungi comes in and decomposes it, and then it goes back to the earth. So
yeah. I don't know, wild. We have to bring an expert on.
Yeah, we need to get Stefano Moncuso on because I have a lot of questions. So listen, if I eat a plant, are you telling me that I will be able to have the force? Because this is what I'm interested in.
Tell us the secrets.
But yeah, that was my...
All right. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to share on the Parasite cleanse?
No, I think that was it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. Like, if it feels right, if you're interested in it, like do the research, read on the website. We can link the brand that did it through Food Over Drugs. Sheila's really dope. Shout out to Sheila. And yeah, it was just cool. I think it's just like fun to have that more exploratory relationship with food and just question a bit of your eating habits and all that. Like, it's so huge, just everything we're saying, the relationship that you have with how you feed yourself, whether you're just looking to food for pure pleasure versus like, are you punishing yourself? Like, it's really interesting to dive into all that, and I'm glad I did it. So hopefully I shit out a few parasites and I'm feeling good because of that.
Oh, the Mucinex guy is gonna come out of your butt.
Literally. Dude, some of the days were not pretty on the toilet, let me tell you that. Like,
oh boy.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
I mean, yeah. Oh, all right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. Did you have anything else you want to say?
No, that's it. You can wrap it up.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in to episode 11. Again, if you are liking listening to our podcast, throw us a rating. Is it on Spotify you can rate as well?
Yeah, you can. Both.
Or is it just Apple Podcasts?
So Spotify, you just do a number rating and there's no like written review. Apple Podcasts is both star rating and written review.
All right, guys, get in there. You know what to do. And if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Bye.